Hello, hello, soulful seekers. Welcome to Trauma and Transcendence. I've got a brand new guest for you. I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful Matt Schmidt. He's going to tell us all about his journey and what that's been like and what he's doing now. Matt, welcome to Trauma and Transcendence.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm really happy to be here. Happy to share the things that I've kind of learned over the years and kind of the journey in getting there. And hopefully it inspires other people to find that within themselves. I originally started as a scientist. I was working in drug development. I only knew one way. And the way I kind of looked at healing, even like I knew like the link between like trauma and stuff, but it's like I kind of looked at the body, the mind as almost like a car. Like, oh, here's something broken. What do we need to fix it? Or, oh, it's just because of this imbalance in your in your brain chemistry. And it's like, no, that's not it, because you never get to the why that's happening. Um, what I love about the work that I've been pushed into now is it doesn't detract from anything I know scientifically, medically. It just adds another layer, and you can get to the why. I kind of feel like a 2-year-old in doing this work sometimes. I'm like, but why? But why? But why? And I never get a medical answer. It's never, well, it's receptor upregulation of blah, blah, blah that's creating the, no, it's you're pissed off at your mom. And I'm still waiting for the day when that's the case, but it's never a medical answer. It's never what I used to think as like the end result. So we keep digging. And I think that we're kind of at that level now, like working in these deep states of trance with people, we can get to, well, why is that happening? And there's always a story. There's always more information of why that happened to the person, when it's happening, how that relates to everything else. And it's just really beautiful because you can get that, and then you can get these physical, these mental, these like actual healing shifts, rather than um, just people staying stuck and trying to like um, fix the problem. I look at my old work now as almost like putting duct tape over the check engine light in your car, being like, "Oh, yep, it's fixed. See, the symptoms aren't there anymore." But you didn't actually get to, well, why is this happening in the first place? And it does take a little bit more work. It does take more time. It does take a little more of an investment in yourself, but by doing that, you can actually have some profound results.
I think when you're in that curiosity frame and you're sounding like a 6-year-old of but why and when and how, and I think that means you're doing it right.
Yeah. And then I took a step back and I'm like, when as a scientist do we stop doing that? Because like, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Like question everything?
Yeah.
And I got so set in a certain belief system, a certain way of thinking. I couldn't think outside of that. And now I see it's all very purposeful. Like I get to be that bridge for other people um, that really want to be able to think outside that themselves. And I think the real power is going to come when we can merge these two worlds together. So
Absolutely. I do think there does have to be that. So before it sounded like it was very left brain, it was all, logic and kind of rigid and methodical. And now it's more right brown, it's more creative, it's more curiosity, it's more, let's see where it goes.
yeah.
So of course we need both. Yeah, that's how we make an entire brain, is the left and the right coming together.
Yeah, and it's not one or the other. And so it's interesting. So even with everything I knew medically, everything I knew scientifically, I was still having all my own problems. I was having grand mal seizures every week. I was on 14 medications for anxiety, for pain, for ADHD, for seizures, for the side effects of those. For like, I don't know, it was just pretty obnoxious. And some I'd been on for like 20 some years. Like after a while, you just think like that's how you are. You just get used to a certain way of living. You just kind of accept where you're at. And yeah, even then I was like sleeping like 2 to 3 hours a night, and I thought that was normal. After 40 years, you just like guess that's how you are. And I didn't know there was other options. Basically, it's like, oh no, you just take more of this. And for those of you that know about like medication and stuff like that, I was prescribed like 6 milligrams of Xanax a night to fall asleep for like 2 to 3 hours, basically black out and wake up again. And like I would tell people I don't know where the off switch is. Like my brain would just keep going, going, going. And then I actually discovered the work of Dolores Cannon. And she's an author, wrote a bunch of books, started looking at working with people with like PTSD and stuff like that early on, and then stumbled upon past lives, and everything kind of like grew from there. But I wasn't so fascinated about like these other lifetimes and stuff. A lot of people like that, but really what I was fascinated by was she'd be working with someone in England. They'd be talking about ancient Egyptian history, something that had never been documented. She'd come to the United States, and the other person would pick up where the person in England left off. And I'm like, what don't I know? Like, what am I missing? So, like, I understand like quantum entanglement from like a scientific side of stuff, but this is this redneck lady from Arkansas talking about like just so matter of fact. She's like everyone's grandma, like, and just like, oh yeah, and then just like that's the way it is. And I'm like, what don't I know? And that led me down this whole rabbit hole of just questioning everything. On the side of that, there was other parts of my life that just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock, and I just kind of like threw in the towel, and it said screw it. My surrendering, I looked at it like giving up, but really it was exactly what needed to happen. And so I found someone that worked with her, or that learned her method, and went and experienced a session myself. I didn't think it would do anything. I didn't think it would work for anything. I come to think of it, I don't even know why I went. I was just kind of working on myself, and that's where I was being led. And in that one session, I immediately stopped having seizures. In 2 months, I was off all 14 medications. I started sleeping every single night. As a side effect, I lost like 60 pounds in 2 months just from stuff my
Wow.
mind was hanging on to. And like that's like a small child. Like I don't even know what happened there. I didn't change anything either in my mind, in my eyes. Like still eating the same. Like, but my body and everything was hanging on to this. Had like this death grip on everything. And that's when I found out I was supposed to be doing this and wasn't doing it. So, and it's the only answer I had trouble with. I'm like, that can't be right. There is no way, because I'm this and I'm this and I'm this, and I really had to like really break down who I thought I was to kind of step into this. And then I saw all these amazing results, and I'm like, okay, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing next, because I was not getting help any other way. And even if it was a little out there, I knew this is how I was going to be helping people. And now I get to give that gift to other people. So it's pretty beautiful.
That's such a wild, oh my goodness, intense journey. Thank you, Spirit, for a journey less intense. I don't know that I would have wanted it. Maybe not
Yeah.
less intense, different kind of intensity, we'll say. So, what was at the root of it for you that came up through the QHHT session? Was it past lives? Was it other things?
It wasn't, it was taking a step back and looking at my purpose for being here, why I came into this life, what I came here to do. And I still had the same purpose. It just looked different. And then that made me okay with it, because I'm like, came here to help people. I knew I always knew from a young age, I came here for something big. I came here to help people. And it just changed how that looked. Um, and then part of it was just letting go of like all the old stuff in the past. But like I was in therapy, and I was like, I got to a point where I felt like I know the right answers. I don't feel any better. Like you're just stuck in this loop. Like, oh, let's rip off the band-aids. Oh, let's put them back on again. It's like, or
Mhm.
just going in circles. And I'm like, this is kind of pointless at this point. It didn't feel like anything was changing. And in that one day, it felt like 10 years of therapy. I'm like, why aren't people talking about this? Is like magic. Like I feel like I covered more ground than I did at least 10 years. And all of a sudden I was in the best spot of my life, and like it was weird. It was such a weird spot to be in. I actually had anxiety because I didn't have anxiety. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I'm not used to it, because it's just such a drastic shift. And then that just became the new norm. And I
I,
was like,
I
oh,
guess the
you can.
neurons kind of need a moment to catch up, right? Because then we
Yeah.
change the pattern, but the body is wired in a very physical way. So it takes a minute to create a new program of, oh, we don't need anxiety anymore.
It took about 2 months, where I'm like, okay, I guess this is just how life can be. And I don't know, it didn't really go away. It just kind of like my new, like um kind of like set point was just a lot higher. And yeah, I kept waiting for the things to like for the other shoe to drop, basically, and it never happened. So, and I don't know, it's just been kind of like building up from there. So
So when was it that you started QHHT? And did you know it was hypnosis? Had you tried hypnosis before that?
I didn't try anything before that, actually. Like I've done like individual stuff, individual meditation, but that's the first time I've actually seen anyone for anything. I did experience like kind of like an energy work session with a friend who was trying to figure out what what was going on with her, and she wanted to show me kind of what what was going on, and I could feel like stuff moving within me. I'm like, what is this? Like, and that kind of like opened up some doors. But really, like QHHT was the first thing I experienced on like the receiving end, and yeah, I hadn't tried anything else before that. Since then, I've tried like tons of other stuff just to for the experience, if nothing else. But I keep going back to the foundation because I haven't found a faster, more effective way to get people where they want to get. And I I've added stuff to it, but really it's essentially at the core. You're getting a person to that space, and then figuring out what's going on behind the scenes, and really kind of healing from the inside out. So yeah, pretty magical.
You touched on something that has very much been my experience, and occasionally I see it in some of my clients too. I think you shared it as a meme last week, actually, and it was this meme of me gaslighting myself after a really good, solid QHHT session of did I make it all up? And there's really nothing like that, like with personal experience. But when you touched on that, it's like, oh God, I did the same thing. That resistance of higher self. So, and that's what we do with QHHT is we do the past
Yeah,
life regression, just for people who aren't familiar. And
yeah.
then we go to higher self, and higher self answers questions and gives insights. And that first time, higher self is just chipper and chatting away and saying, oh yeah, she's going to write books and she's going to do public speaking. And I'm in the background going, oh hell no. You're talking about the wrong person. And so that's when you got told, hey, this is what you're actually supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I got told that was exhausting too. They're like, "Gosh, we thought you'd never listen." Like they're funny. Like they're like I was like, "Oh gosh, even they have a sense of humor."
Yeah. Yeah, no, they can rat people out sometimes in the best ways, though. It's just, it's a very loving, on the nose of,
Yeah.
hey, this is what we actually, need to hear.
When I was in school, I actually wrote the chemical formula of something that never existed. I wrote it alongside the bed in my sleep, and in the session, like I was like, "Where did that come from?" They're like, oh, "He still thinks that was him," because it was like I don't
Um,
know, 20 atoms all hooked together in like a certain arrangement of something that never existed, and then they were actually using it for like orthopedic replacements and tissue engineering and stuff like that. Like it was just a dream. I was like, oh yeah, I must have just dreamt about that. And like, okay.
well, they're not
But I've
going to give
never
you
shut
credit.
down.
They're not going to give you credit for it, but I will. You were open
Yeah,
enough to hear it and to bring it through, and that was the important thing.
someone had to write it down. Yeah. But
Wild.
yeah, it's been so amazing, and since then I've seen so many things I never thought were possible. I've had people regrow body parts. I've had people move their bones
Oh,
back into place 20 years after an accident. Dissolve metal pins and screws that have been put in for surgery, and like, if you'd have told me some of this stuff, like, I would not have believed you. But these are normal people. Everyone thinks like you don't have to be like a yogi and go sit in a cave for 2 years. Like
yeah.
these are actual people, and these are actual like their results. So I think that's probably the coolest thing, that everyone has this ability. Um, your body's ability to heal is greater than anyone's permitted you to believe, and I like to empower people to discover that within themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most astounding, powerful thing. I mean, it's truth, capital T, and we're not taught it. We're clearly taught against it over and over again. It's like conditioned not to. So it's amazing that you're out there and that's what you're doing, and you're fully living your purpose now.
I don't understand it all. What I love about these sessions that we've been talking about is you can ask anything. Like literally nothing is off limits, and for someone who wants to know everything, it's probably the best job in the world. But like I can't even understand the answers I get anymore because they're so
Yeah.
far out. But kind of almost just mind candy at this point. But it also helps me to work with people. So understanding like how these like quantum realities work, and how something like these things that appear to be like miraculous can actually happen. So I've been given a couple of good analogies that help me to kind of grasp it and understand it. So the quantum aspect, I thought it was just a way to like market stuff rather than actually being applicable.
Yeah.
But I see the quantum part of the work that we do as being like the infinite number of like possibilities that exist. So like all the possibilities exist, and you're just shifting into those. So in the simplest term, there's an infinite number of versions of Amanda that exist right now. Okay, the one she's experiencing is the one that she's like dialed into. And in a similar way, all the radio stations are playing right now. You can't hear them until you're dialed into a certain frequency. And so some of these things that are like that look like they're magic, basically it was explained to me that they are just shifting into a version of them that was never injured or that never had that wrong in the first place. And reality is way slipperier than I ever thought. And part of our work is getting the like gum out of the dial so that people can shift into whatever reality they are, because like the fear keeps them stuck, like certain beliefs, certain things keep them stuck on one station, and we essentially free them up so they can move wherever within to wherever they want, really.
So you've had a lot of experience with QHHD. Do you have a favorite case study that uh, just puts you in awe or joy every time you recall it?
I think the some of the physical healing, like the first one they had where a person like grew something back. The lady had a complete like thyroidectomy in like 2006, and her higher self came through and said, "Oh yeah, her DNA is activated enough. Let's just grow a new one." I'm like, really? And then 2 months later, she called me and said, "It's back. It's producing the normal hormones." And she had checked out, and she's fine now. And another one was one. It wasn't actually a QHHT thing. It was actually just a workshop I did, but it's a guiding like a group of people. She had metal pins and screws put in her arm 20 years ago where she injured it. She wanted to focus on that during the class, and then a week after the class, she ended up pulling her bicep. Went and had her arm x-rayed. The bone was back to normal, and all the metal pins and screws were gone.
Oh my goodness.
And my brain is like, well, it's medical grade titanium. It doesn't just dissolve. But like on this quantum level, she could shift into that.
It never
So
existed. Yeah. On
yeah,
the quantum level, she shifted
yeah,
into a part where it
yeah.
never was. That's amazing.
I really do
Yeah.
like working with. They told us not to work with kids, so of course I did it, and it's been so rewarding because.
I appreciate that.
uh, Well, my initial thing was I had a couple people that are like, "Here, fix my kid," and it's like the problem's not you; it's the parent, especially with really young kids. But I've kind of shifted my perspective. One that shifted my perspective was like a 10-year-old that was on suicide watch. I'm like, if you're old enough to kill yourself, you're old enough to heal. So that like threw me into it, and it's just been so rewarding. How many times do we get a person that's 60 years old and they're dealing with something that happened when they were 8? Okay, can you imagine how drastically different your life would be if you didn't have to drag that along? Um,
Oh yeah.
and these kids are already there. They're so easy to work with. They're just so tapped in, especially the kids coming in. We forget that we see like this little human, but I did one that I'll never forget with my daughter, and um, I asked a question about like her sinuses. Her higher self drops in like 30 seconds, and I'm like, so what does she need to do for this to heal? And the answer was something like, well, once this dissipates, she'll be on the most optimal timeline for. And I started laughing because she like doesn't even know those words,
Yeah.
and they're like, whatever, Matthew, she's way smarter than you are. Not saying it's a competition, but if it was, she'd be winning. And then she gets done, she's like, yeah, what'd I say? I'm like, it's recorded if you want to listen back. But
Yeah, no
yeah,
resistance in those
yeah.
younger clients. There's just none because it hasn't built up yet. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
And then you watch them and you know that shifted like so many things in their life because they don't have to like keep dragging that out. There's no point in that suffering. So I think it's a really beautiful process.
And so since QHHT, what have you shifted into moving on?
Um, I've learned a lot just by necessity. Like I didn't want to learn some of this stuff, but I just got thrown into it. So we were told not to work with people with like schizophrenia and dissociative identity disorder, but like given my work in central nervous system disorders, I felt pretty okay. And then I found out like, oh my gosh, this is why we're doing this. Like these are the people I need to be working with because there's no solutions medically. It's like give them a bunch of drugs to like mask symptoms and then
Yeah.
put them away so you don't have to deal with them.
I mean,
That's like how we deal with
chemical
stuff.
lobotomy, right?
It is
Yeah.
essentially, and it's like it's just because we don't understand it, we don't know. Um, with some of these cases too, like a lot of times it comes through. Oh yeah, this is the gift they chose for this lifetime.
Oof.
Really?
Right. For
Not a
who?
gift if you
Gift
don't.
for who?
Yeah. And I realized, like, some of the people that are labeled as, like, schizophrenic and stuff, like, okay, you're just going through a spiritual awakening, and we have different words for stuff, or you are really connected. You have a greater awareness, and part of the whole session or the whole work that we do is teaching them how to have a foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
And then you watch them take off because they can dance that line and they can really like accelerate. With like DID and stuff, one that I remember was so they said this is her superpower. I'm like, okay, well, she's missing chunks of time, like not helping. And I think in normal cases like that, we like, don't process trauma in like the same way as other people, so it gets compartmentalized, and then these compartments aren't really talking to each other, and so it's bringing them into unity. But then the next level of that was it was explained that she could tap into 17 perspectives simultaneously to solve problems, and now
Oh my
she's like a
God.
shamanic practitioner, and she just took off. So from being like the worst part of her life, she's embraced it now, and it's what makes her good at her job. But we look at this wrong. Like in another country, a medicine man would take you under the wing and they'd show you the ropes. It's still a hard life, but you have
Yeah.
support, and we don't do that here. So
I mean, yeah, in some of those older world traditions like shamanism, there is always that initiation process that is a shamanic initiation, most definitely. There has to be a wound in order for a healer to come through. It's wild, and we're so disconnected from that. I think that's changing now. I feel like it
it
is.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've heard about some of these things like, like transpersonal psychology and stuff like that, where, okay, great, we're doing this. And I didn't know that was even a field. And like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like they get that there is more than just, what
Yeah.
we're taught, or at least what I was taught in school and in psychology and stuff. So
Absolutely. And then, so I am actually a transpersonal hypnotherapist. So that was kind of lumped into all my training. And I think the most important part of it is it's the whole.
glitch in the matrix.
I'm so sorry.
Hey,
It just was like
we're,
recording stopped, and I'm just like, okay, thank you. So
it's not, it's still going on my end.
I am gonna trust that it will flow on through, and we'll just keep
Hey,
going.
our
And
energy can't handle our energy together,
Archangel Zadkiel can come and
huh?
clean that up. Thank you. No more. No more interruptions today. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, supercharged. Or I don't know. I'm pretty good with conspiracy theories. I can think of other things too.
Yeah.
These people are way too charismatic to know the things they know. I'm gonna break down too many systems at once. I think the world's ready for that. So we'll be nice. And then you have a really dramatic story of a client who awoken you to a whole other part of that path. But I love the way you said you learn things out of necessity. And I think for me, I tend to learn the hard way. I don't move towards pleasure like some people do. Man, those people are lucky and like super gifted. My mind doesn't work that way. I move away from pain. It sounds like you do too.
I can't go where I'm led. I just like try to figure it out. I'm like, okay, what do I need to learn here? I just see everything as an opportunity,
Yeah.
rather than how I used to kind of see it as like a roadblock. I'm like, all right, well, I used to hate not knowing, and now I like love it because it's like, oh, here's new stuff I can learn. And um, because I am focused on wanting to help people as best I can, I want to have like those tools at my disposal. So, yeah, one of the ones that pushed me into this next area where I'm being nudged is um, I was working with a lady, and when I was taught like my original training and even what I knew, you know, psychologically, with the the old beliefs of psychology and stuff was um, I didn't believe in entities. I didn't believe in any energies that could interfere with outside of us. I don't know why, because it doesn't make any sense why that couldn't be a possibility. But that's how I was trained. Like, oh, there's just a person, part of a person's mind, and like the way I address stuff usually reflected that until that didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
uh, I had one lady, I was talking to her higher self, and it came through. Um, I was asking like what she needed to do for something to heal, how she needed to heal something, and they said just die. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, well, what can she do on her end? She's like, she needs to kill herself. I'm like, okay, I guess this isn't like the higher self at all, but I also didn't know what to do. I felt like I really let this person down. Um, I literally did a disservice because I didn't know how to deal with this. And I'm like, okay, what don't I know? And then that pushed me into this whole field of trying to figure out what this is. And I was kind of resistant to it because I was so like set and like, well, I was told this and I was told this by all these people. And then, but I'm like, I know that's not it because that wouldn't have been either of these things because I tried to approach it from that through that lens and got nowhere. And that's when I discovered, hey, people have been dealing with these for thousands of years. This isn't like new territory. Like shamanic practitioners have been doing this for 8,000 years. This isn't like a new thing. And but the way that people dealt with some of these things wasn't the nicest, and it just didn't it felt off to me. So they're like, oh, you need to like chop its head off and this demon's attacking them. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. But in this work, we're talking to them. So it actually wasn't that weird because they're just talking through another person. So it's pretty natural, actually, for people that do this type of work. I'm like, well, let's talk to this aspect of you. And then you find out, oh, this actually isn't you. And it'll tell you its whole story, why it's there, why it chose that person, um, and then you find out, oh, this is someone's grandma. Like, pretty sure we don't have to chop her head off and send her to and banish her. Like, I'm sure there's a nicer way to do this. And then my partner Whitney helped me with some of this stuff, and she learned through her teacher Amy Walensky, and she gave me a bunch of tools that I could use to do this in a loving, gentle way, and like it got so much easier because like if you're looking for a fight, guess what, grandma's probably going to fight you on it. If you can come from that place of love, compassion, it's this gentle, loving process, and it's a win-win-win for everyone because they don't want to be stuck there either. They would rather go on to whatever they're doing. You free up your person, and then it's a win for the session. So I don't know. It's just been really cool to watch that play out. And then the shifts are instant. Like the person is not the same person they walked through that door as. And it's beautiful. I've even had some of the ones that I have helped release come through in like mediumship readings and tell me how thankful they were that they were able to finally move on from from being stuck in that. And they're worried about the judgment. They're worried about like, if they're like died suddenly. Okay, so they attach to like what they know. And then yeah, you can free their soul up so that it can move on and go where it needs to go. The interesting part that I found with this is never thought this was going to be a thing, but you start talking to them, and I've had a couple tell me, I'm trying to go, they won't let me.
Yeah.
The person's hanging on to it rather than the other way around. So usually I'll ask like, okay, what part of Sarah is afraid to let this go? And like, well, I don't know who I'll be without it. Okay, I'm afraid to be alone. Oh, there you go. Guess what? You're lonely, and you ask for a friend, and guess what? Something shows up. There's always a relationship there, and so you can figure out what that is. When you can heal that core wound that drew it to you, then you can have that complete healing. Otherwise, something's just going to take its place. So I've learned to be kind of thorough in this process, and then I started teaching other people how to do this through the people that are already practitioners, because you're going to run across this, and it's nice to know what to do when you get there.
Yeah, you put out a really wonderful class. You sent it to me. I very much appreciated that, and I watched it a bit earlier. It was great. There were so many good parts to it. I had a few favorite parts that I've, even through several other kinds of training, you just had some really unique and great perspectives that I very much enjoyed. So it was so cool. Do you think you'll be doing
Thanks.
more?
I don't know. I got pushed to do that, even offer that. They're like, people need this. You need to put this out. And I'm like, I was worried about like stepping on people's toes or what people would say, or like this. I had a lot of resistance to it. People were
Yeah,
way more open than, I don't know, even a couple years ago, because
yeah,
they've come across stuff like this and didn't know how to deal with it. And like, I don't know, it's nice to be able to have that there and not to come from that place of fear.
yeah,
So many people are afraid of these things and like, oh, you need this protection spell and you need to do this. And it's like, no, if you're in a good spot and you're coming from the right place and you're in a healed space, like you don't really have to worry about too much. So I think that was pretty good for at least people to drop that fear and be able to know what to do when they get there and realize it's not something scary. I think it's actually more commonplace, and I think that these things are actually kind of like shifting how I see some of these things. They're actually causing some of the mental illnesses that are
yeah.
coming up in people. And they're tricky because they blend so well with us because they're like matched with us that it's really hard to differentiate what's you and what's not unless you kind of have some of the crap out of the way so you can start exploring these things.
Exactly right. And you don't even have to have a full. So, the one thing that really stood out was you don't always call them entities. Sometimes you call them energies.
Oh,
And I loved that. And it's so prompt because the other day or so, a couple of weeks ago, I had a clearing, went to a big hypnosis conference, came back, did not feel the same. Did some self work, did some self clearing, and did a client session. At one point in the session, I know I heard the entity say, "You'll pay for that," but I didn't really register it. And so here I'm testing, and things are literally going to shit. I built my ferrets this really cool enclosure. So there's 4 of them, and they've got like their cages inside, but then they have more free roam time. They're making a monster mess. The dog starts making messes in the house. Everywhere I turn, there's a mess. The floors are grimy, and I'm like, what is going on with the energy in this house?
yeah.
Like, I can't seem to manage to keep it clear. And so I'm testing. I'm like, am I sovereign? Yeah, I'm sovereign. Ended up that it was an imprint. I was really grateful, actually, that I had this on hand.
Whoa.
Want to take a guess as to what I found? It is
Do tell.
word for word. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, word for word. You'll pay for that.
Whoa.
Had the imprint attached. So it didn't even have to be an energy or an entity. It was literally cursed me on its way out. Even though I was being compassionate and kind,
Yeah.
it still just rippled some energy my way. And it was enough to create like chaos. But for someone who's not embodied, it's really easy for us to not catch it. I could have thought, oh, it's the new enclosure, or oh, it's, we're stressed and the animals sense it. There could have been a million excuses, but I was like, oh, hold the phone, something's not right. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever even said entity with a client. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
let's just talk to this energy, and then no one has a problem with it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about being right. Like, oh, is it an energy, is an entity, is an imprint? It doesn't really matter because you can address it in the same way. So, how did you move through it then?
I cleared it with my pendulum. So
Nice.
way back when I began, empath, again, I had some trauma, and that was kind of my shamanic call, if you will. I moved into Reiki, and then the second skill that I learned was the emotion code. And so I tend to still go back to muscle testing and teaching clients to muscle test. And then I like to clear myself and check in before I do a session. And if something's going wonky, it's just a quick thing where I don't have to rely on someone for another session. I don't need to take 2 or 3 hours. I can just be like, what is this? I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of keep going back to that, even though it was a skill I learned a long time ago. It has a lot of value. So,
yeah, I found when you're in a good spot to begin with, you don't need these deep dives into stuff. You can just do the more maintenance stuff, and then stuff isn't baked in like, oh, I've had this since I was 2. Well, okay, that's going to be a little trickier of separating that out.
Or
So,
for several lives. Last week, I pulled a djinn out of someone that had been there for several incarnations, and I'm like, what? That's so cool. Never would have imagined. I love those little things where we learn. But essentially, I have magnets, and that's what Dr. Brad teaches, is to release either a trapped emotion. In this case, it was an imprint, but intention is usually enough. But I like the magnets, and so I kind of run them over the governing and have the intention to let it go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you have additional little modalities that you've like baked into your path and the way that you move with clients?
A lot I've learned through like the people I worked with, like you find your own like groove and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that's been really helpful too, I learned shamanic hypnosis. And that's pretty cool because it allowed me to drop people in seconds. I've done ones with inmates over the phone, like stuff that you wouldn't be able to get away with
Yeah.
you don't have time to do like a 5-hour session with people sometimes. So
You're not
you
able
can
to
drop
get,
right in, tap into where it is, and you can really move through a lot fast. Usually by the time we get to like the higher self portion of things, it's like, yeah, we covered that because you're like doing it like on the fly. So I found that pretty helpful. I am taking like the shamanic program now, and I've been kind of pushed into that. It's been calling for a while, so I think they'll add some other tools for me and stuff. But
I think that
I think
happens
I
to a
think my
lot of
biggest
people.
teachers,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've got that in my history as well. I have other practitioners that I know of who, and in different orders, some of them went to it
yeah.
first, some of them came to it after, but I feel like it always ends up somewhere along the way. Yeah.
I know I'll be a better person after it, and I think one of the biggest things you can do in this line of work is to be that best version of yourself. If you're not in a good space, like if I don't know, it's gonna come through in your work with people. It doesn't matter how many modalities you learn and stuff like that. It's being able to hold that space for people.
That's
I
right.
just did one not too long ago with he was an interrogator for the military for 16 years. So
Mm.
talk about some walls up. And like this is our fifth time working together. He told me at the end of it, the best part of any session we've done is neither of us say anything for 20 minutes. And like I didn't do anything, I wasn't doing anything. And he told me that he started like breathing heavy, his body started moving through stuff. And I was like, in my mind, we didn't do anything, but he just needed that space to like work through it. So he got him to the door, and then the rest was just he just needed to sort it out, work through it. And he said that was more powerful than us trying to figure out the answers that we
Yeah.
thought he wanted to know in the beginning. And
Well, there's a quality that level of space, when you create a sacred
mm-hmm.
container that way, there's a quality that you probably didn't have in regular life. I am actually married to a military person, so.
So you get that.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
What's fun is he's having a spiritual awakening right now. I never thought it would happen. And
Wow.
I have a back seat, and it's like, wow, bless you for sitting
Yeah.
through me when I went through all of this. But now I
Wow.
know what it is. I'm kind of witnessing him. So just, yeah, holding that space and that quality of space is really profound.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is done before we even meet up. Everyone thinks like us working together is the session, but it's like
Yeah.
it starts happening months before it starts happening. I have people hang up the phone after making an appointment, and their physical symptoms go away that they've had for 10 years. Like, what did you do? I'm like, nothing. You're just ready, and
Yeah.
they already know what's going to happen. So I don't know.
Speaking of just ready, so you put out this powerful meditation on YouTube for your clients to use ahead of time. Love that. Can you say more
Yeah,
about it?
I put a lot of them out. Which one?
It was the
Uh,
one for self-clearing. Yeah.
Oh, I'd made that for me. And then I was like, "Oh, I should share it with other people," because,
Yeah.
like, you talked about how do you get rid of stuff? Like, um, I wouldn't have known how to do it your way, and so I'm like, I created the thing just kind of generically based on what I would do with a person if I had them in person. And, um, yeah, I did it for myself because it's an occupational hazard. We pick up stuff, even if we're careful,
Yeah.
stuff can attach or just be in our field or try to be around us.
Yeah.
And so it's a way of getting me back to me. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, other people could benefit from this. And then if people want to do that ahead of time, then there's less to work through when they come to see me. And
Yeah.
it's been pretty cool.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm actually going to share it with a client that I had 2 days ago because she had a really
Do
great
it.
session. We did the Laura Whitworth model, the SCHH
Oh,
model.
mhm.
Had a good time, got her all clear. It took a lot just for the releasement part. And she was feeling great after the session. We did identify, so I've added on a module where now I'm also checking the property to see what
Okay.
else is around. And we were aware of finding a succubus energy that wasn't
Okay.
attached to her, but we
Yeah.
couldn't clear it because it was attached to somebody else. And so free will kind of came into play.
Wow.
Um, and then the next day when I check in, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Huge drop in her energy and vibration overnight. Did some testing. She's not sovereign. It's not on her, but it's in the vicinity and it's draining her.
Hmm.
So I was thinking, you know what,
Hmm.
until we come to a better resolution, whether I clear it remotely from the house or if her significant other will go and get a clearing, they don't have these beliefs, so that may or may not happen. But I was thinking to pass on your meditation for her to at least every day create those
Hmm.
affirmations, create that sovereignty, that high vibration to start herself
Sure.
out every day.
And if you're fully standing in your power, really that can even affect you. So like I
Exactly.
would kind of take that power focus back to her, because regardless of what someone else does, she can be
That's
in
exactly
that good
right.
space. But
That's exactly right. But
that's
there's
good.
something that's happening during sleep that she's having a harder time with. So I'm thinking,
That's fascinating.
yeah, so I'm going to
Wow.
send it for aftercare.
Yeah, that's great.
So if your YouTube upticks, I'm over here sending it to all the people that I'm working with for before and after.
It's been really helpful too, because people get used to my voice. Like
Yeah.
I actually have a whole like heal yourself playlist.
Yeah.
I've had people I've never met that a lady called me up the other day and said her brain tumor went away in 3 weeks just going through the videos. And like, and so like, you can do this yourself. You don't need me like that. I don't want people to need me. We all get stuck at some point, so that's why we have each other. But it is really empowering when people are like, wow, I did this. And like, then they realize how much of their life they have control over. And then stuff really starts to move in their life. I had a funny one. I had someone come to me, and right away I felt there was like an energy attached to her. And in the session her voice switched. And I'm like, well, who is this? And who am I talking to? And they're like, oh, this is the being that's connected to her, and blah blah. I'm like, okay, yeah. And they're like, yeah, I'm coming into her life. I'm like, what? And it's like like, I'm the child that's coming into her life. I'm like, oh, really? It's like I've been connected to her for 3 weeks now. I'm like, what? She's pregnant? Like, for 3 weeks now. and then, she didn't know she was pregnant, and she's had a full conversation with this energy that was attached to her. But it's weird how it came through, because it felt the same to me, even though it was like in physical form. So always learning.
And I think that is like
But
the huge part of what you do that makes it kind of stand out, is that we're not labeling things, it's energy. And because you're not labeling it, there's allowance for, oh, what actually is this?
mm-hmm.
What is the symbiotic relationship here? Laura, she has it in her intake form, and I'd never seen it in an intake form before. Are you pregnant or trying? And actually, I've integrated that in now, just to
Ooh,
have that.
cool.
No, yeah, a super key part. And then we're talking about shamanism. Laura also includes like a little checklist. I don't have one nearby, but we check soul fragments as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just making sure that they've got all of themselves back. It's huge.
I just had a breathwork session with someone. His intake form was, are you afraid to die? Are you afraid to live? Those are the two questions.
They're valid.
Like, those are good. Like, it's like, well, this is different than what I'm used to.
Super valid. Way to get to the punch. Oh my goodness.
No beating around the bush there.
Right. I think I might need to incorporate those. Those are amazing. So I'm just getting to know you, but the things that I've witnessed that I really adore so far is how open and how giving you are. I just want to really comment on that and commend you on that, because I think it's beautiful. I've witnessed you in several Facebook communities, and then the way that you're constantly giving on YouTube. That is so beautiful.
Thank you. It's funny how it bothers some people, and then other people are just like, I don't know. Like, I think this like old energy of like being competitive, it's just like, it's so outdated, and like those people are struggling, and I'm like, why? Like, everyone wins. There's enough to go around. I could use 5 more of me. And I want people to be able to help other people in the best way that they can, and then everyone wins. So it's like, I'm taken care of. So, just kind of being guided where I'm led. And then it's having connections like this. We would have never had this conversation, had that not happened. So there's a bigger picture with everything.
That's true. That's true. And I mean, that's the whole thing of creating New Earth. Everybody's talking about, oh, when is New Earth coming? It's already here. You just need to be at that vibration and try to maintain best you can.
There's so much waiting in the spiritual community. Like, oh, when we get to 5D, when we do that, and like when we have medbed technology, like if you don't have it now, you're not going to get it.
There are people
in the
already
future.
doing it. That's right. Not me, but I know of other practitioners. Have you heard of Heather Hank?
Mm-mm.
beautiful practitioner. Look her up. I think you might enjoy her. But she does the whole med bed thing. Super.
Well, I've had people go to those, but like you're waiting for something else outside of you to save you. It's like, no,
She
you're
does
waiting
it.
for
She does
you.
it
It's here now.
hypnotically. She doesn't do it
Yeah.
physically. She does it
Yeah.
hypnotically, which is even
I've had
better.
people go
Yeah.
there. I've had people go there without even knowing what they were before, and yeah, all the healing takes place there. But yeah, if you don't get what you needed to from it, guess what? Here it is again. It's just like a grade in school. So if you're looking for a magic wand, if I could take away all your physical symptoms and everything, you wouldn't learn anything. So it's like that's not what healing is. So healing is that journey to, self-discovery and realization, and it's not just getting rid of stuff.
That's a conversation
But
I also have often with clients of they want to know
mhm,
why healing isn't always instant sometimes. And it's like, well, hold on.
mhm.
Could you imagine how traumatic that would be if you went from 0 to 100% healed to everyone around you? Like just the next day you're a different person. The whole relating dynamic has changed. Like there would be like a degree of trauma there.
Yeah, that period is getting faster, but like, yeah, there is still a part of that, like integrating it. There's a reason that's it. We're in the density that we are, stuff doesn't move that fast for a reason yet. I mean, you have to kind of be led there. What I kind of love too, I had that conversation with Laura, and we what I love is I didn't know any of her stuff.
Yeah.
So we knew each other from back in the day, but I didn't know she was
Oh,
doing some of the same stuff, and we came to the same realizations independent of each other.
did you guys do
And I'm like,
QHHT at the same time?
I mean, I did it a while, so I knew her from back in the community, like, I don't know, like years ago. And so she's just always been around, but I didn't know that she was kind of pushed in the same direction. And then
Yeah.
we talked. I'm like, wait, how did you get to the same place? Not knowing, we didn't know each other's story, how we got there. And so it just adds like further validity of like, okay, this is, she was looking for answers, how to help people, and we came to the same conclusions. Yeah, we do stuff a little bit differently, but like our outlook is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So
And there
pretty
are
cool.
some spirit releasements that don't have that outlook at all. I've trained those as well, where there isn't the compassion and where there is like a more combativeness. And yeah, what you anticipate finding is what you'll find.
Yep.
Ask, believe, receive, right? That's how that goes.
I believe it really was like that for you. Like, now I have people yelling in other languages and crappie flopping. I'm just sipping my tea. Like, all right, sort it out. Like,
So, what is next for you?
I don't know. Wherever I kind of being led. So, I think the shamanic program, even picking up some of like some more like classical hypno stuff, but uh, yeah, I really don't know where things will take me, but I've been teaching people kind of like locally, just with some of the stuff. It's kind of for selfish reasons. I got too backed up, and I'm like, I'm not going to send someone to another person if they're not going to do a good job. So I've
Yeah.
been teaching them like the ropes and stuff like that, and I think I really get a kick out of sharing what I've learned,
Yeah.
because it's just awesome to see, and I've just kind of been creating this like local community, and this area is kind of like a hotbed for some of this stuff now. It's just like people talk about it and people have heard about it before, and it's pretty cool to see.
So, I'm hearing
But
you're building community. That sounds
it
amazing.
is
Yeah.
the day of the like individual like rock star practitioner or whatever. Like I don't know, I kind of see that as over. People are craving community, and it's providing that. So doing more like retreat type stuff, and looking at doing some international retreats coming up, and yeah, it's just been pretty cool.
Did I see it correctly that you offer couple retreats for like communication and relationships?
Yeah, we just did a couples retreat, and then I have like a deep healing retreat that um it's just been beautiful because you have this like continuity where that you don't usually get in like you have a group and everyone goes back to their life, and they don't have a chance to like integrate that and process that. So people really went through it. It wasn't fun, but like I don't know, everyone got what they needed to from it, and it was just really beautiful. So people got to meet other people that were, oh, you live right by my house. We never even knew that
Wow.
you were a person. So so many people think they're alone, especially when you go through this. All your friends fall away, and it's a lonely path. And for a while, it's like you feel like you're isolated, but you're all out there. You just have to like connect with the right people. So I think it's providing people a place to go on the other side of that
I
for
really
healing. So
like that continuity aspect that you mentioned. I was I'm trying to think of when this was. It was a minute ago. I was talking about vibration and I was trying to teach people what happens to create like spiritual healing crisis. And when you think about retreats, people go, they change their whole vibration very, very quickly. And then they're trying to reintegrate back into a life that was made from a different place. And then they lose those connections and they don't have those people to keep them where they were. So it's really cool
And
that you
that
have
is the
that.
part of it. It is part of being able to integrate back. So I actually incorporated that the last day of what is this going to look like in your life? Like we did some like future timeline shifting and stuff like that. So you could like actually take that home. So you'll see this too. I noticed this in like support groups. Okay, so all of a sudden you discover like a new family and everyone gets you and you bond over like whatever you went through. Okay, part of you staying in that group requires you to be unhealed. So people get stuck there, and like the whole point is being able to go back to your family, go back to the real world and integrate those changes.
To recalibrate.
It's real easy when everyone thinks like you do or when everyone gets you.
Hard won lessons, Matt. I didn't get here on sunshines and rainbows.
Yep.
So that's what I tell my clients. I didn't get here that way.
Yeah, and you wouldn't learn anything. So
right? No. And I'm not exempt from anything either. So I don't assume that it's all going to be butterflies and flowers ahead either. You know, there are going to be moments of literal ferret crap for me to dial in and be like, oh, something needs my attention. Got it.
I think that's funny. People like put us on a pedestal, like, oh, you don't have any problems. Oh, you have nothing to figure out. I'm like, we're doing to the couples retreat. I'm like, fine, let's not even do it. You know, like I was doing with my partner. We were like arguing up to the last minute about like, and then we got there and it was so beautiful, but it was all our old stuff coming up too because of the stuff we were providing. And it's like, yeah, we were arguing on the car on the way.
Yeah,
like,
but that's, you know, when we do these
more than
things,
normal.
it's wild how much we shift to hold space for people. And I would imagine I haven't done very many retreats. I haven't attended very many, and I haven't facilitated any. But I know that just working with clients, sometimes my energy will shift and I'm like, what is this sudden funk that I'm in? It's like, oh, my client is way down here on vibration. Source is automatically adjusting me so that we can start here and I can help them move up. So you were probably doing that same thing, the pair of you on the way there to the retreat.
I think some of the stuff that I was helping them to work through was also coming up for me. And I was like, hey, you never dealt with this, and oh, here's this.
But if you were too far removed,
under the rug.
Yeah, you were too far removed. You needed that reminder of, hey, this is the itch that people have and have to deal with. So you needed to like remember it freshly and be like, "Ooh, yeah, that is painful. Let's look at that."
And it was beautiful because then we could talk about it, and then it leveled that playing field. Like, yes, we're people. We didn't get here in a day. Like,
exactly.
And yeah, so it kind of like it allowed us to keep it more real and relatable rather than just being like, oh, they have a perfect relationship. They have it all figured out. Like, yeah, right. And being vulnerable, I think, is probably one of the best things you can do to like connect with people and open people up to that. So
I've got people asking.
I thought I was going to push people away, but it does the opposite.
It's true.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it makes it more human, more from the same playing field. And people look at my relationship now and they're like, how did you guys, you know, has it always been perfect? No, we've had like 16 years. You know, like we've had a lot of time and trial and error and moved through things. And now we don't have to even speak and we know what the other one's thinking. And if one of us starts a jingle, the other one will automatically finish. You know, like but we had time for trial and error and vibration shifting. And
you'll still run into stuff, but you just dance with it different, you know, after, you know, you've been through it a couple times.
But now we know we're on the same team. So it's not even a me against you thing anymore. And I think a lot of people fall into that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just, what do we want to do with this one? Well, you are a pleasure. I've so much enjoyed you. Is there anything coming up that you want to share or ways you would like people to connect?
I have all my classes and stuff are free on YouTube. That's usually where I send people. So it's my handle is Matt Schmidt QH. I put everything out there for free because I think everyone should have access to this. The only thing I charge for is my private sessions, and that's That's it. I really feel like there shouldn't be a limitation on being able to access this. If you want to do this, you can do a lot of this on your own. And then for people that need the extra help, that's why I offer what I offer. So
Absolutely beautiful. And
thanks,
it's a
Amanda.
really amazing energy to come from. And I hope that as we move forward, that more practitioners will fall into that vibration as well and learn to cultivate it.
It's worked out pretty well, so I'm not going to change it anytime soon. So
Thank you for leading the way in that. It's so cool. So I really do, Soulful Seekers, recommend that you check out Matt's YouTube. What is your site as well? So if someone does want a book, they're vibing, they love your energy, they'd like to experience your route of doing things, how do they get
it's
signed up?
mattschmidtqh.com.
Okay,
So
same. Awesome.
it's a pretty Matt Schmidt QH on most things, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, so feel free to connect with me there. And if you're part of like a practitioner or something, there's a lot of good groups that are out there. Hopefully we'll meet one day in person at one of these conferences and stuff. That's one of the next thing I want to like connect more with more professionals and stuff like that, and just learn because other people have done this themselves. So it's a lot to learn from each other, and I think that's the next installment on my end. So
I mean, definitely. Even when you think about Dolores,
mhm.
yeah, there were some limits to the way that they do things and the beliefs they had that were appropriate for the times. But the way that she's able to show us how to move consciousness in and out is
Sure.
just the most profound tool. And there are so many different ways for us to explore it and work with it. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a gift. And there are
And
tons of
she's
those,
one person.
right?
There's how many people doing this that you can all learn from. And she even said it in one of her things. She's like, the greatest gift to me is like learning from all my students. She's like, they're doing things I never would even thought of doing. And I don't know when that got lost, but I'm like, I kind of live in that same vibration, like let's keep this going. Like what would she do if she was alive today? And keep rolling with that. So
Spoiler alert, I do like to go into the Akashic records, and I did actually, when I started bumping up against things that were uncomfortable, I did actually go in and say, hey, can I speak to Dolores? And there she was. And so I got to ask her, hey, and it was right during this big conflict of QHHD being in person versus people doing it online. And it was already out there online. And I was a clinical hypnotherapist before. So for me, it almost felt like going backward to only seeing people in person. And it's like, wow, that's limiting. So I wanted to ask her, like, what would you do differently and how do you feel about all of this? And she's still learning. She's still learning, implementing, and growing. And that's the really cool thing. And she's like, well, it's all out there now, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, kind of is. So she's not entirely gone. We can still connect and ask really cool questions and actually still get modalities from her. I highly recommend it. Never a dull moment.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And
thanks, Amanda.
Soulful Seekers, make sure that you reach out to Matt and you connect. If you've got any questions, let me know or connect with him. I'll have all his info for you in the show notes so that you can reach out and just really become part of his really cool community and learn about how to heal yourself, because you can. All right, Soulful Seekers, bright blessings, and bye for now.